everybody has their opinions, but I just think Vader was in a class by himself. But Shane, what was the first interaction you had with Vader? Was it crossing paths in WCW in the early 90s?
It was. I mean, I was obviously very well aware of who Vader was. And when, we ended up in WCW at the same time, it coincided for me when I was tag teaming with Ricky Steamboat. And he was working on a nightly basis on the top of the card, whether it was with Sting or Ron Simmons or whoever. Leon was the main event. And then, after he had gone through that incarnation, he and Rick Rude teamed up to wrestle me and Ricky Steamboat. So for me as a kid, relatively speaking, today, at that time I had some experience in the business. I was still relatively new. We're talking around 93, so I was less than 10 years in the business. I'm in the ring with this monster Vader that all these stories, that were just renowned about Leon and what he was doing in the ring to people. And Rick Rude, not to sell Rick short in any way. I mean, to me, Rick Rude was one of those guys that I watched as I was coming into the business and thought, like, what an incredible heel. Like, this guy sells it. I mean, he's believable on every level. And you put Rick Rude and Big Van Vader together, I mean, legitimacy, like, you have to underline that word 3 times, right, with Rick Rude and Vader. When we worked with them, Ricky and I were both the kind of wrestlers that love to sell, but they took it to a different level, because they were both of them, so believable in what they were delivering in the ring, that, I've often told the story about how I would sit and watch on the apron how Ricky Steamboat would get girls to the edge of their seat crying. That's a true story. I saw the same thing with Ricky Morton. And when we were wrestling Vader and Rude, you would see this look of concern on the fans' faces, like one of us was going to get maimed, if not both of us. The fans were so believing in both of them for good reason. When you watch them, we've all seen the video, and I've seen it a little closer than I care to. When Leon would have you in the corner, and he'd throw those big, massive paws of just like a bear, batting you in the head. And if you ever watch closely, you'll see Leon breaks time. So it's not like 1-1, 1-1, 1-1, or 2-2, 2 it's 1-1, 1-1, 2-1. And so you're trying to time it out to go with them. And those big, massive hands that were like hence the phrase ham hocks. I mean, they had literally hams on the ends of his arm. And, he's throwing those big slugs around, and you couldn't get into time with them. And, when he caught you with one of those, you saw stars for damn sure. But I don't say that in like a complaining way. I say it in the sense that from a babyface that loved to sell, Leon was so easy to sell. Because he looked like a monster. He wrestled like a monster. He was so big and impressive looking when you stood next to him that when you see a little 225-pound guy or 210-pound guy, whatever it was at the time, next to him, how could you not get sympathy? He was so believable and so realistic in what he delivered in the ring, as was Rude. I don't mean to digress from Rick in any way, just because of Leon's passing and focusing on him. That he was, like, in my generation coming up, he was that one guy that was uber believable. You could watch him and say, okay, I buy it. If I ran into him in a dark alley someplace, I would turn and go the other way. That was Leon White, Big Van Vader, the man they call Vader, whatever you want to call him. He brought the goods to the table in a big way and drew a shitload of money as a result.
with Vader being so big and so dominant and so athletic, obviously, specifically in his prime, and when he kind of debuts for New Japan, he squashes Inoki, causes a near riot. That believability factor is there with the fans, not only because he beat Inoki, but because of his look and his athleticism. When you first meet him and then, start talking to him, he has a certain reputation. Is that reputation true or false as far as, people saying, oh, he's an asshole or he's a mean guy or that, or was that just something that people get from his character?
Well, Leon certainly had an edge to him. It wasn't like, let me preface that before I go any further. Leon was a damn good guy. But he also was in the business of professional wrestling. And in that business, Leon White, Vader, was a heel. And he played that role to perfection. But once you got to know Leon, Leon truly would, the parallels between him and Bam Bam Bigelow are so close to me. They were the exact same person, not by a long shot. But if Leon liked you, if there was something happening in the ring, you knew Leon had your back. But Leon also knew, having come from the NFL, that he's not just a guy in a slot on a card. Leon knew that if you're going to play in a Super Bowl, if you're going to be a star in that phase of the NFL later and professional wrestling, that you're going to damn well have to leave a mark to do that. Nobody's going to hand it to you. Nobody's going to sidestep and say, okay, Leon, today you're a superstar. And Leon White knew that very well. He learned his lessons in the NFL. And he brought that and laid those lessons down in wrestling in a way that nobody had ever done before. You had never seen a super heavyweight doing moonsaults and, bouncing off the ropes the way that Leon did and moving around the way that 450, 60, 70 pound guy did. Just astounding, from a performer standpoint, sitting in the back and watching that monitor and see that big monster, that behemoth move like that. It was stunning. I mean, honestly, stunning to sit and watch a guy that big move like that. He completely rewrote how super heavyweights were perceived. Up until his time, super heavyweights were guys that tackled each other and didn't sell, clotheslined, maybe did a body slam here or there. Suddenly you see a 450, 60, 70 pound monster doing moonsaults and, catapults off the ropes and just amazing things for a guy that size. Not kipping up from the stuff that didn't fit that character. Everything Leon did, excuse me, everything Leon did fit perfectly in the parameters of that character. But it just elevated the entire perception of heavyweights and super heavyweights after, in wrestling, there's before Vader and after Vader. And the before Vader is a very different time. The after Vader, you then start to see guys like Bam Bam Bigelow and other big guys that are going out and moving, Braun Strowman today, that move very differently than they would have, say, 25 or 30 years ago.